Aloha and welcome, Tiki Tuesday Talk. Excited to have our first repeat guest with Mariah Kunkel in this very, hey, somebody's playing some tunes. Just can't get enough of that song. What's up, guys?
Hi.
Hello.
How you doing? Mariah,
Hi.
where are you at?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm in Los Angeles.
Right on, right on. Recently shut down Los Angeles.
Yep, we're at a curfew.
How's everything going over there, though?
It seems. I mean, it's tough. They just they just closed down all outdoor dining, which is a tough blow to the industry. But spirits still seem to be pretty high. We're just trying to deal with these upcoming holidays and how to figure that out. So
Right.
I hope. But we have some nice weather though, which is a nice bonus, I guess.
Yeah, you do. You do. Preston, what's happening? Where are you at, buddy?
I am currently in Madison, Wisconsin.
Very tropical.
Thank you. It's exotic. Yeah, it's exotic curious.
Wisconsin, been in the news a little bit lately, eh?
Yeah. Yeah.
How's it feel? Do you do any of the vote counting yourself?
Allegedly, no.
Oh.
Am I going for the best counts? No.
Nice. It's good to have you here. We'll get back to you with some 5 questions.
Excellent.
Aaron, you're looking very COVID official. What's happening?
Yeah, I'm out and about in the lovely state of Maryland. So, things are getting close and clamped down. So, gotta stay protected. So,
Hey, Aaron.
What's up, Preston? How you doing, bud? Good. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Steva,
Hi.
what's happening?
Birmingham is Birmingham. Our tropical weather perpetually 70 degrees until February, and then it'll be 12.
You get down to 12?
For like 30 seconds. Long enough for everyone to think they need to go and buy all the bread and milk from the grocery store.
Nice.
And then they have to turn their air conditioning on the next day. It's fine. Everything's great.
Sounds brutal. You do always hear about the Alabama winters and how tough they are.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. All right. We'll check back with you guys in a little bit. All right. Let's get to business here.
All righty.
Wait, wrong one.
Oh.
That's my bad. Hold on. I have a couple intros. All right. So Mariah, as you may have seen last time, co-founder of Pacifica Project, the next wave. So this one's going to be a little more diving into some of the things we learned. How do we adapt to those? How do we look to do this better? As always, chat box and questions. If you guys are on Crowdcast or on Facebook, feel free to ask questions. I'll try and interject them as we go. Please do share the event. We always appreciate that. Tip jar, Venmo at Mariah Kunkel. Presentation will be about 30 to 40. Cocktail session, 10 minutes. And then 5 questions with Preston. So now we'll get down to business.
Oh, so now I take it. Right.
Now you take it.
Okay.
Jump the gun. Got you excited.
Buenas and happy day, todos hamzu. First, I would like to acknowledge the original Indigenous stewards of the land that I'm joining you from, the Tataviam, and their elders, past and present. Tijus Masi to Tiki by the Sea for the opportunity to speak with you today. And also Tijus Masi for everyone that's tuning in. As Pete mentioned, I'm Mariah Kunkel. I identify as a Black and Indigenous Pacifica woman. I was born and raised in California, and I'm currently based in Los Angeles. So through my father, I'm Chamoru, the name of the original occupants of the Mariana Archipelago in the West Pacific. Through his mother, my Nana, Rosa Lozama Kunkel, who was born and raised on Guahan, the other name for Guam, the largest island in the Marianas. Our family or clan name is Kitsu, and we're from the village of Barrigada. The Marianas are currently divided into 2 separate territories or colonies that are currently both administered by the United States. You may be familiar with the term Guamanian as a descriptor for people from Guam. This includes those who are Chamorro and those who are not. This term was also created by the US military, and its use is contested, especially among people of Chamorro descent, whose ancestors lived and moved freely throughout the archipelago. I would like to make clear that I am Micronesian, I am not Polynesian. And while all Polynesians are Pacific Islanders, all Pacific Islanders are not Polynesian. Some of my family in the village as well. I've been in the spirits industry for approximately 7 years, primarily on the supplier side, working for artisanal brands and craft producers in marketing, branding, and social media. I'm also one of the co-founders of Pacifica Project, which, along with my colleagues Samuel Jimenez and Scott Langley. Pacifica Project is a hospitality community-focused collective founded by and created for individuals of oceanic descent within the industry. Our guiding principles are community, education, and support. We envision a visible, thriving, and diverse Pacific Islander community within the hospitality industry, rooted in a strong connection to the wider Pacifica diaspora, a place where we can honor our cultures, tell our stories, navigate our community, support our communities, and navigate paths to both professional and personal success. Before we get started, I'd like to offer a brief roadmap for our conversation today. First, we'll get into some assumptions and guidelines to frame our conversation. Then we'll touch upon the history and current status of Tiki itself. Next, we'll discuss leading with purpose, your personal why. Then we'll examine some typical issues and potential ways to engage with living culture. And lastly, we'll mention ways we at Pacifica Project can potentially assist you. I feel like it's a very appropriate time for us to have this conversation, this specific conversation, as we find ourselves during the week of American Thanksgiving and all of the issues that that holiday brings up with colonization and Indigenous people. It's also the beginning of the Makahiki season on Hawaii, which is a 4-month holiday season in honor of the deity Lono. It was during the Makahiki that Captain James Hook initially landed at Kealakekua Bay in 1778. And he decided that the Hawaiians mistook him for a reincarnation of Lono, which is sort of ironic considering that they killed him not too long after that.
That sounds ironic.
Our talk today assumes that you agree with, or at least understand, my view of Tiki as essentially a settler-colonizer fantasy. That it is rife with racial stereotypes, the over-sexualization of Indigenous women and women in general, is culturally appropriative and insensitive, leads to the continued misrepresentation of Pacific Islanders among other ethnic groups, that the representations of the cultures and people within the Pacific, within Tiki, are a distillation of the way that dominant Western culture feels about them and values them. And it is in relation to what is considered to be the norm, that exotic means not white, that primitive means not white, that this fantasy is oriented around a white, usually, Western, male, Christian, cishet, capitalist point of view. And that this fantasy continues to influence the way that we think about the Pacific and colonized people in general, as well as serves to justify the ongoing oppression of colonies like Guahan and American Samoa and the continued illegal occupation of the Kingdom of Hawaii. If you want to argue about what I just said, or don't understand my point of view, you should probably get out of the canoe now, because I'm not going to make that case today. You can always refer back to a number of resources that are readily available on the internet, and you can also pull up the first talk that we had here at Tiki by the Sea, which discusses history and colonialism, etc.
Yeah, that's on our YouTube channel or our Facebook channel, by the way. You guys can find that the video of that.
Great. I'm not making that case today because I want this conversation to be about moving forward. Don't get me wrong. I'm still very open to having those difficult conversations. But today I'm much more interested in talking about making these spaces more inclusive, more respectful, and genuinely hospitable. And I would like to work with the folks who are open to making positive changes. So today is about personal choices. I'm not going to tell you what to do or the things you should throw out or the things you should never say. I'm hopeful that you're open to doing a bit of personal work on this subject. This is not a cover your ass seminar. It's not a if you do these things, you'll be a good person or beyond reproach seminar, which is the main reason I usually dislike giving hard and fast do's and don'ts on this subject. However, I realize that giving concrete, actionable advice is necessary to start this inquiry and will help folks as they begin to make changes. In the words of Maori Dr. Tuhiwai Smith, I am hopeful that this is a small part of a collaboration that is open to possibilities. But at the end of the day, I recognize that how you feel about Tiki is ultimately up to you. I also readily acknowledge that having this conversation during a global pandemic where many of our beloved bars and restaurants are desperately trying to survive is a thought exercise riddled with privilege. Actually disrupting a business that provides or has provided for your family and creates jobs for others at a time when most folks are struggling is a tall order. I'm especially thankful for those business owners who are taking part in this conversation. I am very grateful for those who have already and continue to make changes that could, in fact, impact their company's success. It's my personal hope that respect, change, and business can and will coexist. In addition, I recognize that Tiki draws from a number of traditions around the world, but today we will be focused specifically on those from the Pacific. I would also like to make clear that I'm not claiming to speak for anyone other than myself. There is no Pacific Islander monolith. There exists a spectrum of opinions on the subject of Tiki, and I would advise for you to seek them out as well. I'm here to speak my own truth and experiences, and again, I'm very thankful to Tiki by the Sea for making this possible. So.
Stoked to have you.
Thanks. It's kind of funny because I can't see you, but then you will say
Yeah.
Kind of surprises me, but it's cool. I'm going to assume that this group is not someone that I need to explain the waves of Tiki. You already know that we find ourselves in the third wave, but I do want to point out that there is a remarkable amount of variance within the current realm of Tiki. So everything from new, high concept, celebrated, expensive destination bars to neighborhood dives. We also have a fair number of celebrated Tiki bars still hanging on from previous eras. I'm thinking here about places like Tonga Hut and Tiki Tea in Los Angeles, the Tonga Room and Hurricane Bar in San Francisco, etc. So the subjects that we're going to touch upon today will tend to hit different depending on your perspective or place of business or how long that business has been in existence.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So when I refer to the next wave, I'm talking about envisioning a way forward. Where do we go from here, armed with the knowledge that Tiki is problematic and needs to change? What comes after this current wave? How do we construct something more honest, perhaps more authentic, that's more inclusive and genuinely hospitable to everyone? How do we create opportunities to celebrate and preserve living cultures? How can we share Pacifica culture to a wider audience? How do we create transportative experiences without weaving a fantasy riddled with white supremacy or colonialism? So I believe the best place to start is examining your purpose. Some of you might already be familiar with Simon Sinek and his concept, the Golden Circle. He's written a number of books. He gave a really popular TED Talk. He has a YouTube channel. He releases a ton of interviews. If you're not famous with him, if you're not familiar with him, I recommend you checking him out. He's a much more compelling speaker than I am, but I'll attempt to paraphrase this sort of concept. So while most organizations can point to what it is they do, so we are a Tiki bar, we are a Tiki event series, we are whatever, and how they do it, these are the drinks, this is what the bar looks like, these are the specs, etc. A lot of leaders and organizations unwittingly sort of skip over the why they do it, the purpose that's driving it all. So I invite folks to take a step back and examine the why that's driving their love of Tiki. I would guess that for most, Pacific culture is actually more part of the how than the actual why. But if your why is to create a Tiki bar just like all of the ones that we've just agreed that need to change, I'm not sure why you're still in the canoe, but I actually appreciate that you're hanging on for the ride for this long. If your why is to provide a beautiful escape, to make delicious drinks, to create this temporary vacation, or to construct a tropical jungle, there are a multitude of ways that can be successfully communicated that don't require culture, that don't require racist tropes that don't require religious iconography or an abundance of bare-breasted Indigenous women. But if the why does include cultural elements or culture, then you've got some personal work to do, especially if it's not your own culture. But even if it is your own culture, if I was going to open a bar, I would still have to do a ton of research. It's on you to do the research to make sure that you aren't being offensive. You need to seek out primary resources. Reading Hawaii by James Michener or Watching from Here to Eternity is not going to cut it. You need to seek out sources created by Indigenous people. You need to seek out cultural practitioners. You need to experience the culture firsthand for yourself once we all can gather in places again, but you can always use the internet, I suppose, in the meantime. But you also have to recognize that not everything in a culture is available for you to use as decoration or elevator music at your business. As well as the fact, this is tricky, that there is literally no universal right or wrong answer when it comes to all people and their cultures, especially regarding what they find offensive. So I have two quick suggestions for you to start your research. We have on the Pacifica Project website, we have a constantly expanding reading list. Some of them are essays that you can click to read immediately. Others are book lists. We have historical texts. We also have art and poets and things like that for you to investigate and start reading, but also social media, especially Instagram, which is an excellent platform for discovering Pacifica individuals and artists, activists, organizations, even restaurants. There's even Pacific Islander TikTok, if that's your thing. You should diversify your feed.
There you go. Now you're speaking my language.
You're on TikTok, Pete. I knew it. So diversify your feed so you can start to see real living people that sort of exist beyond the narrow stereotypes of Tiki. So from here, let's look at some typical pitfalls in the Tiki genre, specifically in the areas of branding, language, and decor. There's no way that I could hit every single element within this industry, within this genre, but these are the three buckets that I've sort of narrowed down for our talk today. So branding is an umbrella term that refers to your visual identity as a company or organization, specifically things like your name, your logo, your look and feel as communicated through colors and font choices, etc. I personally love talking about branding because I'm a nerd about it, but your branding choices serve to immediately and indirectly communicate to your audience about your business, especially in context removed from your place of business. So here, think about your Facebook avatar for your company or your business card. These things communicate about your brand that it's a fun brand, or is it perhaps more serious? Does it seem elevated, or perhaps something a little bit more casual or accessible? So branding is one of the first steps you go through when creating an entity or an organization, and is something that you will repeatedly drive home to help make stick in the minds of your audience. So obviously, to change or make changes to something like this as an established business is a very big deal. So in terms of name, first off, I'm gonna hit you with my big ask. I'm gonna recommend that we get rid of the term Tiki altogether. We're not going to get into it here, but the word itself has a long-standing cultural significance to a number of Pacific cultures, which has been removed through cultural appropriation. And there is really no reason to continue this appropriation, especially when the word tropical is perhaps an even better description, as it considers more of the traditions from around the world that this genre borrows from. I also disagree with the use of Polynesian. These bars have never been Polynesian with their Americanized Chinese food, and their drinks largely invented either in the States or the Caribbean. To use the term Polynesian not only erases these contributions, but also all the other cultures of the Pacific, which is very rich in diversity. I'd like to note that there has been some great work on this front, with organizations like Trash Tiki rebranding themselves simply as Trash, or bars like Lost Lake in Chicago that refer to themselves as a tropical bar. Moving next to logos. Logos are no stranger to racial controversy. They frequently display some of the more outrageous qualities of racial stereotypes, presented in an innocuous fashion. And people love their logos and mascots, associating them with the love of a sports team or a business, especially if they bonded through childhood. So here we have good old Chief Wahoo of the Cleveland Indians, who, and I didn't know this, was officially retired in 2018, because he remains recognizable. If you see that logo, you know what it represents. Right. What the artist has done here is to extrapolate this visual treatment of Indigenous people to some other groups that might somehow seem more obviously offensive. So because of the smaller number of Indigenous people in general, both Native Americans and Pacific Islanders, combined, we represent less than 3% of the total US population, and Pacific Islanders are only 0.5% of the total population. Most people perhaps lack the context to understand why these representations are harmful and offensive. So with Tiki logos, you frequently encounter the Tiki mask and the hula girl. Sometimes you get both, like this Casa Tiki where the hula girl is wearing the mask. So both figurative art and dance are integral parts of many Pacifica cultures. To see them used as funny cartoons to promote a sports bar is just as offensive to me as Chief Wahoo was. Changing logo is a very big deal, especially in an industry that creates so much branded swag. And I would like to acknowledge the fact that Tiki by the Sea recently updated their own logo to remove the Tiki mask. And I'm grateful for their openness to make this change to a logo that they've used for a very long time.
Thank you. And appreciate your effort in kind of learning how to get there on it. So
yeah, totally.
It was a good process.
Yeah. Next, we're going to turn to fonts. So a text within literary theory is a coherent set of symbols that transmits some sort of informative message. A font is a collection of those symbols with a similar design. Fonts have the ability to communicate without actually saying anything at all. If you take the black letter fonts favored by the Nazis, using that font today would be an obvious dog whistle. And also sort of think about the Make America Great Again font. It's all caps, it's Times New Roman, it's purposely lacking any slick design elements, it's willfully unstylish, it's very purposely a regular man's sort of approach to design and fonts. Two others that you might recognize that are actually considered racist are the wonton font family, which is used to signal Chinese or Asianness, and the Africa font, which you might recognize from The Lion King. Can fonts be racist in and of themselves? Probably not. But when fonts rely on stylistic stereotypes attributed to a group of people, they can lead to racist designs or stereotypes about those people, impeding proper representation, leading to lower respect, and or the view that the group is somehow primitive. So I'm leaving out the mid-century style fonts that you'll frequently see associated with Tiki here, just focusing on the primitive styles. Fonts that look like rudimentary brush strokes or little bones or that are obviously childlike. So when using these on your menus or your flyer designs, what is it that you're communicating about the people and the places that these fonts essentially represent? So from nonverbal communication, we'll now move to actual language. Language has been a contentious subject from the moment Westerners arrived in the Pacific. The forced supplanting of indigenous languages for colonizer languages is still an ongoing struggle, and the use of Pacific languages presents specific issues that you should be aware of. On Guam, and this is a picture of a school created by the Navy on Guam, the military introduced several measures designed to increase the number of English speakers, including forbidding the use of Chamorro in schools or on the baseball fields, requiring English fluency to advance in formal education or work for the government, issuing corporal punishment, tickets, or fines for those caught speaking Chamorro, and even rounding up Chamorro English dictionaries and burning them. Similar language policies were imposed on Hawaii. In both colonies, and even more so on Guam, there was a huge reduction in the native first language speakers through force and assimilation. When choosing to use a Pacific language that is not your own, first understand that the use of indigenous language is something that colonizers have always interfered with, perhaps evidenced most obviously by the names of some of the islands: New Zealand, New Britain, New Caledonia, New Guinea, for places that are not new. It is a privilege for you to choose to use these languages without the cultural and historical weight attached to them, especially if you bring a lack of personal awareness of the struggle to keep these languages alive despite efforts to eradicate them. Personally, I recommend that you only use the amount of a foreign language that you would feel comfortable with using with a fluent speaker face to face. For me, even with other Pacific languages, that typically extends to basic greetings and thank yous. And if you decide to use a language that is not your own, please make sure that you've got pronunciation and spelling down. I have a real life example for you. So at a tiki cocktail book signing party, I was handed a book written by someone who is very popular within tiki circles, who had misspelled the word mahalo in their handwritten message to me, written to me in front of me. That felt awful, and I'm not even Hawaiian. I can't imagine what it would have felt like had I been Hawaiian. So similarly, if you name your bar after a deity, or to the folks who give themselves names drawn from Indigenous Pacifica culture or language, you are being culturally appropriative and you should stop. Culture is not a costume, and that extends to names. Choosing to exoticize yourself with someone else's culture, no matter how much you profess to love and admire it, is wrong. I'd like to give you another example that will hopefully make this a little bit clearer. So I was born and raised in California, which used to be Mexico at one point. Mexican and Mexican-American culture has been a presence in my life for as long as I can remember. Spanish is the language that I know best after English. I have always loved Mexican food. I took Chicano studies courses in college. I love cumbia music. My first boyfriend was Chicano. I work in and love agave spirits. I travel, when I can travel, to Mexico frequently. In New York, I lived in Bushwick, one of the largest communities of Mexican and Mexican Americans in New York. However, I am not of Mexican descent. If I suddenly decided to give myself a Nahuatl or Zapoteco name, that would be kind of weird, right? How about if I wrote a book about agave spirits and Mexican drinking culture and then misspelled the word gracias as I signed it for someone who was actually Mexican? That seems obviously offensive, right? So giving yourself a Hawaiian name for some reason doesn't seem to be as offensive to most people, which is definitely linked to the representation of Indigenous Pacifica cultures as something like a party theme and not a living culture. Tiki bars are a very big contributor to that. Lastly, I'd like to point out that the Hawaiian language isn't universally spoken throughout the Pacific, although it appears a lot of folks think this is the case, which is why I don't typically answer an aloha with aloha, unless you happen to be Kanaka Maoli. Nearly 25% of the world's languages, or 1,500 languages, are spoken in the Pacific. Using only Hawaiian language and Hawaiian culture as a stand-in for the entire Pacific further contributes to the erasure of other Pacific cultures. This means other Polynesian islands, as well as those of Micronesia and Melanesia. Aside from the mere survival of these languages, there are more complex cultural concepts that are conveyed through language that are frequently watered down or hollowed out as dominant culture continues to suppress Indigenous cultures. Here we'll use Hawaiian language and culture only because it is probably the most recognizable. For example, Aloha Airlines, Kuleana Rum Works, Malama Tree Care. Each of these words carry cultural significance that is not captured through straightforward translation. The word aloha is probably understood by most as a catch-all phrase that means hello, goodbye, and love. But its meaning goes much, much deeper than that. I'd like to read this quote from Dr. Haunani K. Trask's essay, Lovely Hula Hands, Corporate Tourism and the Prostitution of Hawaiian Culture. Social connections between our people are through aloha, simply translated as love, but carrying with it a profoundly Hawaiian sense that is, again, familial and genealogical. Hawaiians feel aloha for Hawaii, whence they come, and for their Hawaiian kin upon whom they depend. It is nearly impossible to feel or practice aloha for something that is not familial. This is why we extend familial relations to those few non-natives whom we feel understand and can reciprocate our aloha. But aloha is freely given and freely returned. It is not and cannot be demanded or commanded. Above all, aloha is the cultural feeling and practice that works among the people and between the people and their land. She goes on to say in reference to Aloha magazine, the point, of course, is that everything in Hawaii can be yours. That is, you, the tourist, the non-native, the visitor. The place, the people, the culture, even our identity as native people is for sale. Thus, the magazine, like the airline that prints it, is called Aloha. The use of this word in a capitalist context is so far removed from any Hawaiian cultural sense that it is literally meaningless. So when it comes to Pacific languages and names, Tread lightly and with respect. Recognize that your ability to understand complex cultural themes present in language will undoubtedly be impaired. Seek guidance from native speakers and decide if the use of language is truly part of your why or if it's merely shorthand to communicate exoticism. So speaking of exoticism, we'll turn next to decor, which is an umbrella term that I'm using to refer to all of the elements that make a tiki bar feel like a tiki bar. So a lot of wall art frequently presents a double whammy in terms of sexualized depictions of Indigenous women and or just sexualized women in general. Their nakedness, because they're almost always naked or nearly naked, is presented to titillate and excite the male gaze, rather than as a cultural fact and a part of life in a tropical climate, living in a tropical climate, unhindered by the guilt of Judeo-Christian traditions. Pacifica women, or those styled as hula girls, are presented as something consumable, readily available for anyone who might want her. This positioning of her sexuality in service to white Western men is a complete divorce from the empowered, much more equal position that women occupied in the Pacific cultures prior to contact. It is a direct reflection of the sex trade that was initiated the moment early explorers first reached the islands, and it continues to impact how women of the Pacific are thought of today. I frequently suggest that folks think about this, but also all of the things that we're talking about today. If you center your own culture, sort of like swap out the Pacific Islander culture and put in your own culture. So what would it feel like if the women in your lives were constantly presented as such, as ever compliant, hypersexualized, sort of like wallpaper, like your partners, your sisters, your mothers, yourself even. In general, I think less sexual objectification is something that we should be striving for in public spaces across the board. I would love to see that same respect extended to the hula girl. I would love to see representations of Pacific women that are powerful, that are diverse in skin tone and age and size and shape. She's almost always light-skinned, young, thin, etc. I would love to see a celebration of real Pacifica women, perhaps even produced by Pacifica women. And while we're on the subject, please keep in mind the fact behind the prevalent artwork by Paul Gauguin that he produced in French Polynesia, especially considering the fact that he was an already married, middle-aged, syphilitic artist that was marrying, impregnating, and painting, in this case, girls as young as 13 years old. So, figurative art in the Pacific has a long-standing tradition. These beautiful works can present a way for people to connect physically with cosmic or spiritual energy, to demarcate a space that is considered holy or sacred, or perhaps they can represent the embodiment of a deity itself or an ancestor. To see crude approximations of these beautiful sacred objects hollowed out to drink liquor from is perhaps one of the most profane uses I could think of. But it's also disheartening to see them used as super cute bolo ties or necklace beads, made into large wearable styrofoam heads or into tacky ashtrays. This represents a value decision that the belief systems that these objects come from are not worthy of reverence or respect, that they are not real religions and they should not be considered sacred. Yet again, this comes from settler colonialism, white supremacy, and the importation of Judeo-Christian religions. It's why we end up calling them false or pagan or idols, words a lot of tiki bars use, because they are essentially deemed to be not real belief systems, or at least they are belief systems that no longer exist. With the tiki mugs in this picture, I would venture to guess that most folks would probably consider the Fu Manchu mug up at the top, left corner, to be offensive. I have that same feeling about nearly all of the mugs presented here. To be served a drink in one of these mugs at a bar has never ever been a good feeling for me as of late, no matter how good the drink is. I get it though. It's fun to drink out of a fanciful vessel, but consider that you're contributing to ongoing systems of oppression by casually using these bastardized objects. That white settler colonizers entered the Pacific, attempted to wipe these cultures away and replace them with their own cultures, and then decided to make a fun party theme out of a hollowed out shell of indigenous culture, And that colonization and occupation is continuing today. To me, tiki bars have always felt a little bit like the trophy room of a hunter. You're always made sure to understand who's in control, who has power, who is the strongest. So lastly, we'll talk a little bit about music. My main criticism here is the use of exotica. Exotica is essentially the tiki bar of music. It's a nonsensical amalgam of ethnic, again, not white, sources, styles, instruments, and leitmotifs. It's exotic, but it's not too exotic. The cornerstone being Les Baxter's 1951 album, The Ritual of the Savage. Later artists added in exotic birds and big cat roars, all in a theatrical effort to create feelings of mystery and danger. So again, here we have a hollowing out of traditional music, styles, and instruments from around the world to create a sound that is ultimately watered down to provide ambiance for an audience that is largely white. So the rousing closing number in the Enchanted Tiki Room at Disneyland received a similar sort of treatment. The song was originally written by Prince Lele'ohuku II in the 1860s. It was originally entitled We Two in the Spray, and the lyrics detail a clandestine meeting between two lovers on a beach. But in the 1930s and 40s, the song underwent a series of arrangements and changes by American band leaders and was renamed the Hawaiian War Chant. And it went on to be a very popular song, leading to its use at the Tiki Room beginning in the 1960s and continuing today. So it goes without saying that if you are going to play actual Hawaiian music, it's probably useful to know what you're playing. A friend of mine recently recounted being at an event and being surprised at hearing Kaulana Napua by Eleanor Kokia Ohiwa Kalani, Prendergrass, come on over the loudspeakers. This beautiful song was written in 1893. It's also known as the Stone-Eating Song, and it is a severe condemnation of the US government and the overthrow of the Kingdom of Hawaii. It is a song with great historical significance. It is a protest song, but it had been reduced to mere background Hawaiian noise. I would also like to assure you that there is a wide diversity of music created in Oceania and also by folks in the diaspora stateside. Folks are making great music today, modern music, right now, new music. Exotica and mid-century arrangements of Hawaiian music are not the only things that are available. So a corollary to wondering if there's been any new Pacifica music since the big band era is the idea that Pacific cultures are perhaps something of the past in general. I'd like to assure you that Pacifica cultures and people are still very real and very present today, despite centuries-long attempts to marginalize and oppress them. If you have decided that Pacifica culture is an integral part of your bar or event or organization or what have you, I urge you to actually support and honor these living cultures in some way, by employing cultural practitioners, by providing space for Indigenous chefs to share their foods and practices, by working with artists and artisans on your decor, perhaps by hiring Pacifica graphic designers to create your menu. Here we have a couple of examples. I'm Chamorro, so you're going to get Chamorro examples, but there are a ton of examples out there. I also urge the support of organizations and charities dedicated to the survival of Pacific Islanders and their culture and lands. The Pacific and its people are burdened by a number of pressing issues as a result of colonialism and imperialism, including climate change, over-militarization and nuclear waste, gentrification, seizure of sacred lands, a lack of representation or self-determination in government, and cultural or language preservation or revitalization. I had to put the Facebook guy in there. Yeah. Here are three examples. So Micronesia Climate Change is a 501c3 based on Guam that's dedicated to protecting the islands of the Pacific from the effects of climate change. Ho'uka'aina is a 501c3 community group using the ancient traditions of kalo or taro cultivation to engage and improve the lives of today's youth. The organization empowers youth to realize the meaning and purpose of their lives by helping them develop life strategies and skills through the cultivation of kalo and Hawaiian values-based coaching. And Brown Girl Woke focuses its efforts on supporting communities and opportunities for girls and women in Samoa and American Samoa while simultaneously organizing aid missions during events like the recent measles outbreak, as well as the current COVID crisis. So I recognize that jumping into all of this might seem a bit daunting, so I want to assure you that this is one of the main reasons why we created Pacifica Project. So our most important mission, we consider our most important mission, is connecting the Pacific Islander community within the industry, sort of the same way that the ocean connects all of our islands. And while we are unable to meet in person right now, we are already seeing the beginnings of a network of folks that we hope will continue to grow. To that end, if there are any Pacific Islanders that are watching, please get in touch with me. Secondary to that is a desire.
A few who said hello.
Sorry?
I think there are. There's a few who said hello.
Oh, nice. I can't see anything. Secondary to that is a desire to function as an educational resource for folks within the industry. We give talks like this, we hold staff trainings, we keep up a resource list. So please tap us for help, guidance, consultations, and referrals. In this new year, we will be focusing on rolling out our own educational materials. So please continue to watch this space. We also hope someday to have events. Remember events? Weren't they fun?
You should do an event.
Yeah, in-person events, not digital events. So check out our website, follow us on social media. If you have questions or comments or would like to get involved, please get in touch or reach out. We would be happy to hear from you. So that about wraps it up. Tijus Masti to Tiki by the Sea for providing the space to have this conversation. And again, thank you for everyone who took the time to sign in or to tune in.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to add Steva back. Hi, Steva. Super educational as always. A lot to digest. Really appreciate you coming back and having that chat with us.
Yeah, totally. Thank you for having me.
While we do that, well, let's make a drink because we do, in theory, make drinks from time to time, although, of course, not in person anymore.
Yeah, let's make a drink.
Steva, do you want to talk about this cocktail that you were inspired by Mariah's choice of flavor profile and how you got it?
For sure. So we asked Mariah things that she likes and she feels connected to, and one of them was soursop or Guahan. And we have a really great Hispanic market in Birmingham, Mi Pueblo, that I visit often, and so they have it, and I was super excited to use it and made a syrup from it. This is it in its raw form. If you could
let's zoom in.
Zoom
Yeah.
on me. On the ground. Here we are. And so I made it into a syrup, and it's gonna be the thing that goes with this Avoir Ambarana.
Oh, that's so good.
So good.
Yeah.
You know, aged and delicious and being warm in cold times right now.
There
and
you
then
go.
a little banana liqueur. Pete was trying to give me a hard time earlier about that I'm going to make an egg white cocktail as a tropical drink. Which I say that tropical flavors are not encompassed by.
Oh, there you go. Touche. Touche. I will say two things. One, the Avoir Ambarana is a native Brazilian wood, which gives it a really unique flavor profile, and also does play super well with both banana and all kinds of variety of tropical flavors, and is actually really good in an egg white cocktail.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So I did the soursop syrup, some unfiltered apple juice. I'm going to put a touch of lime in here just to give it a little bit of acid. And then quick crack on my egg white here.
Zan says dope shirt.
Oh, yeah. This is from Brown and Balanced. If you are familiar with Brown and Balanced and Josh Davis, whom I love dearly, and I'm excited to wear this, and you know, it is a thing. Normalized Black bartenders is a thing that we should all be aware of.
Agreed. We'll put the cocktail back up for a second here.
Yeah, do it. It smells delicious. Put a little cinnamon in the soursop syrup. Just
I don't know how many of these have we've done, but I've never actually had the cocktail myself, which is pretty sad. We should do, you know, we should do at the next physical live Tiki by the Sea is remake every cocktail on our.
Just so you can drink all of them?
Yeah, so I could drink them.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea, Pete.
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea. I'll be that much more entertaining.
Somehow, every one of your ideas is just like a little bit more work that I have to do.
You like to work.
I'm always super excited about it.
Oh, man.
Oh, look how pretty.
Look at that.
I do still make drinks from time to time.
You're a pro.
And from time to time, I mean every week.
Wow, it's beautiful.
Thank you. So I named this drink Unhindered by Boundaries
Nice.
because in that article that's on the Pacifica Project reading list called Our Sea of Islands,
Yeah.
it's talking about how Micronesia once was unhindered by boundaries and imperialism and colonialism
Yeah.
tried to box them in, and yet the spirit will always be unhindered by boundaries.
Nice. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Nicely done.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So, cheers to
Oh,
you.
look at that glass, too.
Yeah.
Look at it. This is I borrowed this. I'm going to return it from the Atomic Lounge where I work. So, yeah, it's great.
It's beautiful.
I'm going to make a
Very
little
cool.
design here.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
So imagine that it's beautiful. You can't really see the.
It looks pretty. Why don't you tell us how it tastes?
I'm sure.
Tell us how it tastes. Somebody's got to drink that.
It tastes delicious. Listen.
Perfect. I love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right, let's bring in Preston. What's up, buddy?
Hi. All right, like watching everything. So
You're ready. You're ready to go.
All right.
All right, here we go. 5 questions.
All right.
Okay. Favorite meal in Wildwood that my dad did not make?
I am gonna say the meal that we had at the restaurant. I can't remember the name of the restaurant, unfortunately.
Beach Creek.
Thank
Creek.
you.
Beach Creek.
Yeah,
Go ahead. Sorry.
that's it. That's
Okay.
it. Beach Creek. Yeah. Yeah, I had to change that because everybody answered the same thing, and it was just going in his head. So I had to change up that question. All right. Favorite face from Steve Casey. Favorite face.
The face of tenderness and understanding.
Oh wow! Wow.
Listen, he knows
What a
he
proud
wants a
moment.
Christmas present this year. So
Wow. All right. All right. Weirdest thing you saw in Wildwood. Weirdest.
Oh God. Outside of the town itself.
Yeah, the whole thing's pretty weird.
I am gonna say people doing like these. They're slow and lowing each other. Like people ice each other with the little slow and low cans.
Right. That was like a one-day thing. Like it was a phenomenon for a day.
Got out of control quick.
Yeah, didn't expect that. Steve,
No, I did not see that one coming.
oh wait. Aaron wants to get in here.
Yeah.
Got something to say about slow-mo.
Oh, I might be getting seasick. Hold on.
Yeah, what are we doing here? Is that an office chair?
Yeah, it is an office share now.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow, haven't seen one of those in a while either. All right.
An office.
Favorite Tiki by the Sea memory.
Favorite Tiki by the Sea memory. I am gonna say, outside of the connections I made with other individuals, I really liked the Real McCoy presentation by Bailey Pryor.
Yeah.
I thought that just the whole history and the way he went into how that connected to his PBS documentary, I believe it was from PBS, about and how the whole name and brand came about and how he was discovering it. I loved that particular class.
Great storyteller. Really, really good juice. Shout out to Bailey. All right. Tell us what's up in Madison.
What is up in Madison? Madison is providing. We're trying to do our best coming into the winter, providing a relatively safe hospitality industry, but it's tough with the coldness here, kind of thing. Beautiful town. I encourage you to come visit when it's safe to visit.
How long have you been there?
I have been in Madison now for a decade. I'm originally from Southern California, and then essentially I ended up moving to Madison for
the weather.
Yeah, good. God.
I was going to say the cheese.
Carlsbad,
the cheese,
California.
man, the cheese.
PU. It's terrible here. Where the real pretty stuff is.
Yeah.
That could happen. Yeah, I'm surprised nobody guesses that. I don't know.
My other guess was the skiing. But I was gonna go with skiing or weather.
Skiing, yeah, absolutely. This is like one of the flattest states ever, as well.
I know. Yeah. All right, Steve, what do you got? You got one more?
Tell us about Plain Spoke.
Plain Spoke. All right. Plain Spoke is a canned cocktail company that's been around for 3 different years consecutively. I don't know why I said 3 different.
You're doing great.
Yeah, thank you. We also now have opened a tasting room, which we opened this year in May, downtown Madison. Our distribution is through, I believe, 3, if not 4, depending on when things are, states. Working on more all the time. And all natural ingredients, real juice. It's literally just a cocktail in a can. Like, there is nothing particularly secretive about it. It's like our mojito, it's 4 ingredients. All 4 ingredients you would expect to be in the mojito.
Cool. Got it. Aaron, what do you got?
Nothing, man.
Great.
Wanna give you an opportunity.
Favorite Corona activity other than canning cocktails?
That's a good question.
Playing chess.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
You didn't see that one coming, huh? What? I got somebody talking smack to me earlier, and I didn't even know that guy. He's from like France or something. I don't know.
Gotta
How
watch
much trash talk can you do with chess though? Like,
I mean, dude kind of beating me up on it, actually. I was just like, if I had...
Listen, they're watching the Queen's Gambit on loop, and now they're just they're chess experts.
There you go.
There it is. Right. There it is.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Thank you for coming on. Good luck out there.
Thank you.
Enjoy the weather. Next week, Ezra Starr talking about hot tiki. How do you get tropical in the cold? It's been rad, everybody. Thank you again, Mariah. Really appreciate it. Good luck, everybody. Stay safe out there.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.